Okay, thank you for meeting with me today, Dr. Rosales. Just want to start off with maybe asking you to share a little bit about your career so far, your current position, and kind of your career path to getting here.
Absolutely. My career path to getting here is kind of a twisted one. I started off with being a paraprofessional in a self-contained DD classroom, and I was also working in group homes for ED students, and they said, would you like to teach ED class? So I said, sure. So I went back to school to become a teacher. So starting off from a paraprofessional, jumping forward 15 years later, I've been a self-contained ED teacher and also a self-contained for the developmentally disabled, and also a resource teacher, and also as a department chair at South Valley for 4 years. And then the position for coordinator came up in Gilbert Public Schools, and I was really excited to support the teachers, which is what I did already on a campus level for the department chairs. And I had served on quite a few committees for Gilbert Public Schools. So when the opportunity came up to apply for the coordinator position, I felt like I was ready for it, and I was really excited to take on that position.
Great. So what would you say you felt like was an indicator that, you know what, I'm ready for this? What's a personality trait that you felt like would take you to that next level of leadership?
I think being on committees and leading the mini committees that I was on and being given those mini opportunities of leadership among the teachers I was with when it came time to be a leadership, the second my boss had said that she was retiring or moving on, there were a couple people that the team actually pointed their fingers to as the next ones to step up. So it felt really good to have kind of the endorsement from my coworkers, but also just to be ready and to know that I've been giving some responsibilities and I've done really great with them. And also, somebody once told me, once you could think about what you would change that your boss is doing, that you'd be ready for their job. And there's a lot of things, not negative, but just that my boss would be doing, and I'd be like, oh, you know what, I think I would do it a different way. So once I started kind of envisioning myself in doing the activities that she was doing and how I would do it, then I think I knew that it was time for me to go ahead and apply.
Great. So with that vision, what were the things that you thought, you know what, this is the direction I want to take my team, my department to, and what would you say were the things that gave you the confidence to make that decision and go that direction?
I think being confident in my own knowledge and my experience. Gilbert Public Schools at that time, we were very resource heavy. We had a lot of resource classes, and we were very siloed from general education. Our students were either in special education or they were in general education, and they would kind of remain on that path for a long time. And it was that old saying that once you were in special ed, you were always in special ed. And this was not just a Gilbert Public Schools scenario, but a scenario for schools across the country and across the state. So that my predecessor actually had just started looking into re-implementing IDEA law as far as getting the students out into as many general education classes as she possibly could. So when she left, she really had the ball rolling, and I was really excited about the progress that we had made with that, so I didn't want to have that slide back. So I was really excited to kind of jump on board on the momentum that she already had, and I knew kind of her vision as far as where she was going with it. And I knew legally that it was the right thing to do for the students, and I knew how to take the reins and run with it. So it was really kind of an exciting time because she had started the ball, and to be able to just kind of now take it and run with it, and to know that I had the skill set and the ability and the knowledge to do that was fabulous.
Great. And how did you kind of take that vision that she had, that you felt like running with, and guide your team through that change and that shift?
I think the first thing, because she had started so early on in the game, just kind of laying the vision, a lot of the teachers, especially the veterans who had been there a long time, because she was only there for a couple years, so the person before her really, how do I want to say it? It was more of a campus-based decisions where if teachers didn't want to use the prescribed curriculum, they did or they didn't. It really wasn't an enforced policy. So when she came in, she said, okay, here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be teaching curriculum with fidelity. We're going to be taking data. We're going to use research-based, data-driven decision making. We're going to do facilitated IEPs. Our campus was one of the first ones to run with those initiatives. So now to say, okay, here's what we implemented on our campus. Now I can help facilitate that district-wide. So kind of restating the vision, restating the purpose and where we're going with it. For this next following year, we're really emphasizing the term every ed, and that special education teachers aren't just special education teachers, they are teachers for everybody. So we've been kind of dropping the word around when we talk about assessment. Assessment isn't just of general education, it's of special education too. So rather than saying special ed and general ed, we just call it every ed, which reinforces that it includes everybody. Every ed actually is an initiative from the RTI movement, from Judy Elliott. So everything that we do, we try to back up with data, back up with research, and kind of just bringing that research to practice model. So this isn't something that we just made up, but kind of really building that why. Coming back to the data point, when I was sharing these ideas with principals, we really made sure that we use data in sharing this with them. We do something called the post-school outcomes data, and that data actually is where we call all of our postgraduates who have graduated for a year out, and we check to see what they're doing right now. Are they in university? Are they in college? Are they in the military? Are they gainfully employed? Or are they sitting at home on the couch? And it's really timely because one of our principals had just asked, well, how many of these resource students are really going to college anyways? So it was great to come back and say, you know what, out of our SLD population, which is our students with significant learning disabilities, or specific learning disabilities, I think the data on it was like 86% of them was in college or a four-year university right at that moment. So we really reemphasized this is why we have to up the rigor for our students. This is why we have an obligation to make sure that we're providing access to the general education curriculum as much as possible, making sure we emphasize the least restrictive environment for every single student, assuming general education first, and emphasizing that special education isn't just a place, it's a service. A lot of times people start with, well, what room are they going to be served in and what are we going to do in there? It really is not like that at all. It's what are their needs based on their qualification areas. So reinforcing kind of our core values of our first purpose is making sure that we teach our students in the most, what's called the least restrictive environment as possible, and that we also make sure that every student, whether they're on an IEP, whether they're on a 504, whether they're an English language learner, receive the support that they need, and that they don't necessarily have to qualify for a certain program or what they call a wait to fail model to receive the support that they need. RTI is an amazing support for that, but a lot of times it's only implemented in elementary, so trying to bring that up to the secondary. But I think really starting with a why. Why are we doing this, and using data and research to back it up.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question is, with what everything that you just said, there's a lot of passion behind what you just described you're doing, and you backed it up with data and research, and you're talking to these principals, and you're rolling it out with your teachers and all the schools and everything. Where do you think that passion comes from? What drives you forward, and what motivates you to keep driving forward with this?
I think just having a sense that knowing that every student can learn, and knowing that every single student has the ability, there is nothing better than looking at, and I'm a data nerd, so there's nothing better than looking at a graph that has a positive line to it. Just making sure that if we're not just passing students through, these are our future. These are our future teachers. These are our future engineers. These students, we have a responsibility and an obligation to make sure that we provide the very best that we can. These students are my own kids that I have in school. It's my friends' kids who we're educating. So where does the passion come from? I think as a child, my dad always told me, make sure that you do what you love. And if you do what you love, you're not going to work a day in your life. And he was absolutely right. I followed my passions. I took the classes that I liked in college. I didn't it's kind of backing up way to kindergarten. I was pre-veterinary because I loved animals, but getting into what I was doing, I wasn't really into the sciences and the chemistry and the physics and all the other classes you had to take for sciences. But I loved psychology. I loved family studies. I loved sociology. I loved child and family development. I think I almost graduated with like 4 different minors and going through ASU. So I did end up graduating with a bachelor's in psychology, not really knowing what I was going to do with that, but knowing at that time I had taken up an opportunity to work with the group home with teenage ED boys with an emotional disability. And from there, it's just following my passions. I mean, I loved working with those boys and seeing what that population truly was, the throwaway population where people would put them in a self-contained classroom and no one really thought about them as long as they weren't in the office or causing a problem or that they weren't involved with the police. But being able to reach those students from a relationship point of level, and for my students to understand, you know what, she understands what it's like to work in a group home, and when my staff comes and picks me up, she doesn't look at me like I have a third head. So having that relationship with the students and just really not doing it for a paycheck, not that you get paid a lot in education anyways, that's a whole nother story, but doing it because you love it. And then just having your coworkers be special education teachers. And that breed of a person is such an amazing person because they don't get paid extra to stay after to write IEPs or to run IEP meetings, or people always laugh, oh, special education teachers have smaller caseloads. They might have smaller caseloads, but they have a ton more work. And then managing paraprofessionals, that's a whole nother story. So being able to have a job that I get to support special education students and promote growth for our most vulnerable population, I think that's just a true blessing.
Wow, that's wonderful. Have you always known that you would do something in a leadership capacity, or is that something that just kind of evolved through your experiences, or when did you kind of have a shift where you thought, you know what, I have these leadership traits?
I don't think I ever really saw myself as a quote-unquote leader. I saw myself as a servant. I really see myself as, when I look at like we just addressed our special education teachers, I have 250 special education teachers I support. And when I talk with them, I tell them, I'm here to support you. You are the reason that I do this. You know, or I'll get an email, hey, I know you're busy, but can you help me with this? I'm like, no, I'm not busy. You are the reason I'm in this job. I end every email, if there's anything I can further do to support you, that's what my job is. I just always reemphasize to them, that's what I'm here for.
Great. So with that definitely leads me in a great direction, because you're talking about your interaction with your employees and how you support them. And so give me an example of that. What are some ways that you maybe praise and motivate your teachers that you're working with, especially being that they have such challenging caseloads or different legal things they're facing? What are some ways that you kind of keep that momentum going for them and keep their eyes on the vision and praise and reward them?
That's a really good question. Gilbert Public Schools has been, we've been frozen for 7 years on the salary schedule. So that right there, financially, they're not being rewarded with. When it comes time for an override, there's a large segment of the population who's not in favor for it. And they oftentimes find themselves in the newspaper or the district just being attacked. And so as a teaching profession, trying to keep morale high really is a huge priority, because it really does make a huge impact on the students. I really try my very best to hire coaches that can support the students. And I actually just replaced my coach team because 2 of my coaches got promoted, which I'm extremely excited for them.
Right.
But when I was hiring for coaches, I actively recruited for people who were necessarily experts in the curriculum that they were coaching. And I purposely told them, I would like you to apply for this position. And I know it's not something that you're going to say, well, I never taught that curriculum. But you're the type of person that is going to be able to support a teacher. I never want one of my coaches to walk into a classroom and a teacher to put on a dog and pony show. I never want them to feel judged. I never want them to feel like we're an evaluator. I want them to walk in and be like, hey, Will's here. You know what? I'm so glad to see you because I really need help with this. I want them to be approachable. So I won't hire somebody just because I need a coach. I will purposely wait until I can find someone who has a positive attitude. I really train them up on I have my master's degree in counseling, so I really train them up on trying just that empathetic listening. You're not there to solve everything all the time. Teachers make sure that they're emotionally supported, because that's so much when they feel overwhelmed and when they feel stressed out. They could have the most obvious answer in front of them, but if they're feeling overwhelmed, they're not going to be able to problem solve effectively. So the coaches, we do what's called cognitive coaching, where I really try to have my first of all, we're out in the classrooms a lot. I really emphasize this is not a desk job. This is not a job that you're going to remotely monitor. This is not a big brother job. This is a job where you're going to be out in the field. You're going to be shoulder to shoulder with the teachers. You're going to be modeling classes. You're going to be jumping in. If it's not your area, if you're a math coach and you're a language arts coach and you can see that they're having some behavior management issues in their classroom, I expect you to jump in. I expect you to offer support. You're not there to tattle on them. You're there to support them and to do everything that you can. And if you don't know how, then I expect you to ask. I really emphasize also, you're not there to know all the answers. And I try to take that pressure off of my coaches too. I don't expect you to be an expert in Read 180 or in the Language Live curriculum, but I expect you to, you're the person there that has the time though. When a teacher says, you know what, I don't know how to enter my students, to say, hey, you know what, give me the list, I'll enter them for you. And for the teacher to go, oh, thank you for doing that for me. I didn't have time how to figure that out. And just for them to be the support for that teacher and to really kind of be the breath of fresh air for that teacher when they walk in. And for them to have somebody to call and be like, you know what, I really need help writing this IEP. I don't know how to do it. Great, come to the IEP Open Lab. Oh, you have to coach that night? That's okay. I can come to your classroom when's your prep period. And to really have that really customer service model for the teachers, I really emphasize for them, and that's a real high priority.
Okay, so it sounds like to me, in the absence of having like financial rewards that you can provide, I'm hearing you say there's a lot of support, a lot of matching skills with, what's going to be something that's going to be really positive for the coaches, for the teachers. So it's again addressing that, connecting that person with what they're passionate about. Would you say that's true? Do you have
Absolutely.
other reward systems in place as well?
I think kind of there's that old, I don't even know what the book is. Is it The Love Languages? Whatever, I think it's by Chapman, 5 Love Languages. I kind of look at that as far as a work reinforcement level. Mm-hmm. I pay attention to how people kind of treat me, because how they treat me is how they want to be treated. So if someone writes me a really nice letter saying thank you, mm-hmm. that automatically tells me they receive praise in written form. So I'll make sure to make a note of it, kind of a mental note, and be like, you know what, if I write them a note, that's how they're going to feel appreciated. If someone gives me a Starbucks card, just totally out of the blue, I know, okay, you know what, that's how they receive it. And it doesn't have to be anything big. I got, and I try to, kind of like, what's that, multiple intelligence. You're just trying to do it all different ways to see which way is going to reach who. It's not a lot, but I got the dollar scratchers, for some like bingo cards or something. And I have 11 department chairs who've been working their tail off this summer. So I got, I ran out of thank you cards. Actually, I need to get more, some thank you cards, and I'm just going to put the dollar scratchers. And it's not a lot, but it's something that I know that they're going to appreciate and just notice that they're noticed. And I also do as much praising in public as I can. If they did something really great in their unseen job, I'll send them an email and I'll CC their principal on it. Or I'll call them out if they have great scores and a student progressed 2 or 3 reading levels. Holy cow, I'm going to shout it out. Not by student name, but congratulations to Miss So-and-so's class who raised their reading level a whole grade level in a semester. I mean, those are huge. So I'm always looking for the things that they're doing and not just saying, hey, good job, but specific praise and really looking to highlight what's good and not let them get stuck on the negative. We also try to go out of our way to notice our students. And there's so many great things that our teachers are doing, whether it's a Best Buddies Club, whether it's doing a unified sound, or if it's doing after-school sports for unified PE. There's tons of stuff that they're always involved in. And knowing they know that I'm going to share that information, so my leadership team, like my department chairs, they'll start sending me stuff. hey, so-and-so is a psych at our school, and we heard she just got her doctorate. Awesome. That's going in the weekly Wednesday, so we can call it out and shout it out and be like, you know what, that was a lot of work. Congratulations. So just constantly looking to see where we can praise, and actively not saying, you know what, I'm really busy, I'm not going to do it today, but doing it because it's so important, and it's going to come back, because people are going to do stuff for you, not because you told them to. And if you do, because if you do something because you told them to and they're just doing it, they're not going to do it with their part in it. But if you can do something that really impassions them, they're gonna give it their all, and the students are gonna win in the end.
Wow, great. So we've talked about some really positive reinforcement. Let's switch gears a little bit. Tell me a little bit about a challenging interaction you may have had with an employee, or and how you handled that.
Absolutely. With special education IDEA law, a lot of it revolves around compliance. So when you're looking at compliance, you're either right or you're wrong. So you could look at it from a punitive level of, okay, how am I going to punish you to get this right? Or you can look at it from what I explain to my coaches. We're ultimate teachers. We need to look at our teachers as they are our students, and we need to differentiate our coaching to them. You need to approach a teacher, kind of look at where they're at and meet them where they're at, praise them where they're at, and then make a plan for their growth. Not pinpointing where their deficits are, but saying, you know what, you did really great present levels, but I noticed your goals aren't right where they need to be. And then showing them immediately the resource for them to improve. Here's a bookmark with the SMART goals kind of modeled out on how to write a SMART goal. And if you need further support, and it's kind of learning their learning styles. Are they someone who wants to come to an after-school seminar? Are they someone who wants to watch a video online? Are they someone who just wants a handout to refer to? So by learning how your teachers learn, you can then be the most effective coach for them. So we really try to not do a punitive kind of, oh, you messed up on this, but try to do it more from a modeling that teaching model that we expect our teachers to do for their students, and in showing them how to improve. And you are going to have those teachers that, they're going to need a little bit more guidance, or maybe you did show them how to do it and now they're just not following through with it. And that's when we absolutely would pull in administration and be like, you know what, and you're going to document. I showed this person how to do it on this day. They turned in this IEP. I didn't see that much improvement with it. I did invite them to the learning lab on this day. They said they weren't able to come, or they said they were going to come and they didn't show up. I offered to do an in-class thing. I showed them how to do it. They're still doing the same thing. And then it kind of goes to the next step where they're an evaluator, and then an evaluator will have a discussion with them. And usually an evaluator is an assistant principal or a principal on the campus. And the principal will then, say, hey, okay, here's the coach that's providing support for you. What can I do to help you? To kind of, let them know that this is something that we're looking at. Because a lot of times there's a saying that if you don't pay attention to it, it's not going to get done. But if you pay attention to it, it's going to get done. So just trying to keep your attention on several things at the same time is something that's really going to be helpful.
Okay, great. So with that, that sounds like how you've handled the kind of the one-on-one coaching. Have you had situations where your team has had some arguments, maybe you're in a team setting and there's strong feelings between a couple different people in your team who have different opinions?
Oh, absolutely.
And how have you managed that?
Yeah, absolutely. We find that a lot, like in the self-contained classrooms, and that's really not something that I really harp on with them saying that you're doing something wrong. It's this high-stress environment. You have special needs students who are typically very fragile. You have several people who are working in a closed-spaced environment for, several hours a day. There's definitely things that are going to possibly happen. We try to do activities for them. We do a communications training. We do like a communicate. What's your communication style? We make sure that they have different ways that they're providing support for their paraprofessionals, because they are their supervisors in the classroom, to make sure that they're communicating effectively with them, that their expectations are clear and fair and reasonable, that they're not expecting something that's not reasonable for them. We also, my mind just went blank.
That's okay.
Oh, conflict.
Okay.
I do have it. a lot of time we find that conflict is really based around stress. So if we can help manage the stress, we really see a reduction in the conflict. And a lot of times if a teacher's angry about something, it's usually not what they're presenting kind of surface anger is. There's usually a deeper thing. So by just giving them the extra time, or by inviting them into the office and just letting them talk and having that relationship and not just coming into it from a reactive standpoint, but really as a proactive standpoint, and knowing where everyone's at really helps. And I emphasize for the teachers, this is a stressful job. This is a very important job, and everyone in this job, you don't go into special education and take years of extra education and spend hours writing IEPs and because you don't love it. I mean, special education teachers do it because they love it. So just making sure that they're supported. And if there is conflicts, giving an opportunity for them to speak. You know what? I think so-and-so wasn't very happy, and just promoting that open communication and dialogue amongst the parties.
Okay. So do you do that right in that team setting right there where the argument comes up, or do you kind of benchmark it for later?
Usually from my position, there's not a fight that's going to happen right in front of me. It's something that I'm going to have to kind of notice in emails, because it'll start kind of passive aggressively, where I'll get an email, so-and-so was going to have host the dance, but we were going to, and now I don't know what's going on. It's like, well, did you talk with them? Yeah, but she wouldn't answer my emails. And so then you're kind of going, oh, there's something going on here. So then maybe I'll just pick up the phone and be like, hey, what's going on with this one? Well, I was supposed to have the dance and she wanted to host the dance and da-da-da. And so it's like, okay, well, you know what? I want the two of you guys to pick up the phone, and I want you to talk it out and figure out, look at your calendars, because I'm sure she was just trying to make sure a dance got hosted. And I doubt she even knew that you were interested in doing it. And this is just an example of the last conflict we had in the spring. And to somebody, it might seem quote unquote petty, but to them, they were really both excited about hosting a dance, and one just jumped on the gun when the other one didn't quite yet. So the two of them decided that they were going to host it together, and they were able to work it out. But just kind of paying attention to the subtle things, because they won't necessarily get in an all-out argument in front of you, but they'll just kind of start saying things that you just got to notice and pay attention to before it escalates.
Great. So tell me about some leaders that you admire and what the traits are that you admire in those leaders.
The traits that I admire in the leaders are leaders who are there to support, and that there's an old saying, hire somebody good and then give them space to do their job. I think it's really important not to be a hover leader, and as I've had different bosses throughout my career, I found that I've always flourished best given the parameters, but then the autonomy to do what I needed to do. I love when someone says, you have this, now create something with it. Because then you have an opportunity to really, what the parameters are, but you can kind of be creative and run with it. So I try to provide that for my teachers, that, here's the curriculum that we have. Here's several curriculums that we have. Do what's best for your student using your professional judgment as a professional. I think if leaders can give them more autonomy, but definitely making sure they're still following IDEA and the guidelines for it, that teachers will step up, because that's what they do. That's what they love. And for me to come and to give them a scripted program and say, here, read this to them, that's not valuing them or their creativity or their education or their expertise. But by saying, hey, you know what, I'm providing you with this curriculum and this curriculum. If there's something else you need, let me know. I'm here to support you. And then for them to come and be like, hey, you know what, I found this online. Can I try it? You go for it. Let me know how it works. And if it's something we want to share with somebody else, then that really inspires them to kind of to move forward with it. So I really appreciate it in myself when I have bosses that do the same. And that's probably what I've modeled my leadership style after.
So it sounds like you not only appreciated that the chance to step up into a leadership role and take kind of control of what you were going to do and how you were going to implement it, but you also, it sounds like you like to foster leadership in your team.
Absolutely.
To do the same.
Absolutely.
What do you think your team would say is kind of the signature style that you have? Or something about, that's Shama, something that is just kind of your trademark as a leader.
I had someone tell me the other day, if you're excited about it, I'm excited about it. And it was kind of a really cool compliment, because it let me know that this particular teacher had trust in me, because it was kind of something new that I was rolling out with them. We're going to be phasing out the resource science and the social studies, and bringing in the co-teaching, which is a completely different style of teaching. And it raises a lot of anxiety with teachers. But ultimately, it is the best thing to do for students, to have them access to that general education curriculum. Another leader that I would love to highlight, there's a couple, Simon Sinek from What About Why, or it starts with Why, or The Golden Circle. I absolutely love listening to his lectures and anything he has to say. I follow him on Twitter and on Facebook, and I really like how he explains it's the why. And so I encourage all of my principals and my department chairs not to start with this is what we're doing, but explaining the why. And it really gives people a purpose, and really reinforces the mission and the vision.
Wonderful. So what else have I not asked you so far about leadership, your perspective on what it takes to be a good leader, or how how leadership, has kind of, you've expressed it in your career?
I think having just have presented to the opening of the teachers, it's just so fresh in my mind. I only have one opportunity where I have them all together for the year, so I really try to put a lot of thought into that opening kind of presentation to them. And I don't use a PowerPoint. It's me and a mic. Well, actually, the mic didn't work, so it was me and shouting at this last training. But I really emphasize to them, even though about half of them know me, I have to remember that half of them don't. So I took some time, even though I know it's still crazy busy, but to let them get to know me. And I talked to them about special education and my history of where I came from and why I do what I do. And I think that's really important, because the very first example that I can think of with that is when I very first started my job at Gilbert Public Schools. I worked at South Valley for 4 years. And I feel like I did a really great job in inspiring trust and working with the teachers from there. But a lot of the other campuses out of my 11 that I support didn't know me. And I was just a name to them who they didn't recognize. So the very first thing that we were talking about, it seems minor, but it was one of those things where your office assistant doesn't print out your progress reports. It's your job to print out your progress reports. It was just something that I was supporting the office assistants with, because it was something that they were unnecessarily being put upon, and a responsibility that they were then trying to get stuff from the teachers, where the accountability and the responsibility really should have been on the teacher's shoulders. So not having an opportunity to really build relationships with every teacher in the district at first, I had just said, you guys, from here on out, you're going to print your own progress reports. It doesn't sound like a really huge deal. You press print and it prints. I had a teacher call me up the second day of my job and was like, who do you think you are doing this? Do you know how much work we have to do? Do you know how many IEPs we have to write? Do you know how much ink costs? And so I told him, I said, you know what? I'm really glad you called. Actually, I do know. I've been a special education teacher for 10 years, and I took the time on the phone and I explained my history and what I've done, and that I've been an ED self-contained teacher for 9 years, and that I've changed diapers, and that I've worked with paraprofessionals, and I've done IEPs and supporting teachers. And after I got off the phone with him, he's like, wow, it's really great to know that someone there actually has been in special education and knows where I'm coming from. And I told him, I said, yeah, and I know how hard it is to press print. And he laughed and went, yeah, sorry about that. I just didn't want anyone telling me what to do. So it was really kind of funny, because it's one of those little things that's what he came off as being angry about. But really, he just saw me at that moment, because I didn't have a relationship with him as a boss figure coming down telling him what to do. And it was just one more thing on his plate that was probably the tipping point. But taking the time to get to know him, and to get to know, or him to get to know me, really helped to build that relationship. And he still works at the campus, and we always laugh. I'm like, we laugh about that still.
That's great.
And it just shows that building that relationship with the teachers, and letting them know your history, and taking the time to go to their classrooms. And a lot of times I'll walk into a classroom and they'll be like, oh my gosh, did you come to see me? Did you come Like, am I in trouble? I'm like, no, I just came to visit your classroom. I want to introduce me to your students. Let me know what you're doing. How can I support you? Just getting out there, even though it's so easy to get trapped behind emails, and it's so easy to get trapped behind monitoring curriculum from a distance or answering phone calls, but just making that office space and saying, you know what, I'm going to be out on campuses, and making those unannounced calls when they don't expect you, and just being out there, not saying, okay, I'm going to go to this class for 15 minutes and this class for 15 minutes, but just being on a campus. And we just look at every opportunity that we have to give back to them and just to say thank you and that we appreciate what they're doing.
It's a high level of involvement, it sounds like, and an understanding that you reach with your teachers, so that's great.
Thank you.
So one last question. I know I said that on the last one, but but you inspired me to ask one last question, and that is, throughout your career in leadership, what is an accomplishment that you're really proud of?
I think retaining the amount of teachers that we have retained in such a hard, to not have a raise in 7 years makes me want to cry. And we've had teachers who, they came on as a first-year teacher, and they are now with us 5 years later, and they've received their master's degree, and now they've been in the classroom for 4 or 5 years, and they're still getting first-year teacher pay, and it breaks my heart. And some of them, when they say, you know what, I'm sorry, I have to go find another job because I have to start paying back my loans, I don't tell them, oh, I'm so sad you're leaving. I say, I am sad you're leaving, but I am thrilled that you're going to have an opportunity to improve your family and to improve, and I'm sorry that we weren't able to pay you what was due. And I know that that's not on me, but just making sure that they're aware that I'm aware, that they've stuck with us and the loyalty for as long as that they did. And also just keeping the door open. I don't think there's any teachers who've probably left that I really try to keep in touch with them. And one of the coaches that we just hired actually is a teacher who left, and he's now returned because I've kept in touch with him. Because over fall break when he went to go work for another district for a couple of years, or for a year, just meeting up with him, being like, hey, how are you doing? You did such a phenomenal job. We'd love to have you back in Gilbert. And so when the coaching position came in, he said, you know what? I'd love to come work with you. I know I don't know the reading curriculum, but I know you, and I know you're going to give me support that I need to get the teachers ready. And he's going to be a phenomenal person to bring back on the team. And he's only on a second day here, and I can see already the teachers are going to really respond well to him. But it's really it's in the relationships, and it's in fostering those relationships. And I don't have the best memory for names, and I don't have the best memory for all the details all the time. So I try to write everything down. But there's another saying, a meme or whatever. People don't know what you said, or they won't remember what you did, but they remember how you made them feel. And I think that's so important. So just probably out of what I'm most proud of is just building the relationship with my teachers. And I've been in four different districts in my career, and not one of them did I leave negatively, and just keeping the relationship with them and building on, we're looking at this IEP program. I used to use it in Mesa. I have all these contacts in Mesa, and just networking with the districts that I used to work with, or in Queen Creek, or in Kyrene, the other districts that I used to work with, and just keeping those relationships and saying, you know what, because then when you want to look at how someone else, what model they're doing, or when you want to say, you know what, hey, Chandler has a great Read 180 program. Let's go check it out, how they're doing it. Oh, hey, I hear so-and-so has a great co-teaching. Let's go see how they're doing it. Oh, you know what, Florence has a great, they rolled out one-to-one technology. Let's go see how they're doing it. But being able to maintain those relationships with those other people, so you have a contact, and that they do too. So when they can say, hey, you know what, I hear you're doing great things with Voyager and Language Live, that they can come and say, hey, can we come and visit? Absolutely. Because that's ultimately the kids are winning, and that's what we're in it for.
Phenomenal. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been truly inspirational, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.